The massive alien warship emerged from hyperspace with the elegance of a predator awakening from slumber. Its crystalline hull gleamed against the starfield as it took position above Earth's moon, weapon systems charging with an ominous blue glow. Admiral Kate Morrison watched from the bridge of humanity's orbital defense station as 12 more vessels of the hegemony fleet materialized around their world, each one capable of reducing continents to ash. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the lead vessel," reported Lieutenant Torres, his voice tight with tension. "They're demanding immediate surrender of all human military assets." Morrison studied the tactical display showing Earth's pathetic defense force Oro. 37 outdated frigates against 13 ships that belonged in nightmares. The hegemony had crushed civilizations with fleets 10 times larger than humanity's entire space navy. Every tactical analysis showed the same result: total annihilation within minutes of engagement. "Open the channel," Morrison ordered, her weathered face betraying no emotion despite the impossible odds they faced. The main screen filled with the image of Commander Vex Thule, a towering reptilian creature whose species had conquered 17 star systems before humanity had even invented the wheel. His scaled features showed the casual arrogance of a being who had never faced meaningful resistance. "Primitive humans," Vex Thule's voice rumbled through the translation matrix, each word dripping with disdain. "Your species has violated hegemony space by establishing colonies beyond your permitted boundaries. This transgression demands immediate correction." Morrison remained perfectly still, her hands clasped behind her back. Around the bridge, her crew watched in tense silence as their commander faced down one of the galaxy's most feared military leaders. "Furthermore," Vex Thule continued, "your recent raids on our supply convoys suggest delusions of military capability. Today, reality will cure you of such fantasies. Surrender your fleet immediately, and we will limit our retaliation to your orbital installations." The alien commander's reptilian eyes glowed with predatory satisfaction. Behind him, the bridge of his vessel bustled with activity, as weapons officers prepared for what they assumed would be a brief and decisive slaughter. Morrison finally spoke, her voice carrying clearly across the void between their ships. "Commander Vex Thule, I believe there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of this encounter." The alien's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of confusion crossing his scaled features. In his extensive military career, condemned species typically begged for mercy or raged helplessly against their fate. They did not speak with such calm confidence when facing overwhelming force. "Your reconnaissance clearly identified our fleet composition," Morrison continued. 37 light frigates against 13 heavy battle cruisers. By every tactical doctrine in existence, this engagement should last approximately 4 minutes. Vex Thule's reptilian lips curved into what might have been a smile. "At least your species understands the mathematics of warfare. This will make your surrender more dignified." "Actually," Morrison said, reaching into her command console, "I think you've miscalculated something rather important." She activated a holographic display visible to both fleets. The tactical readout showed the positions of all vessels in the engagement zone, but something was wrong. Where the display should have shown empty space around the hegemony fleet, new contacts were appearing, hundreds of them. Vex Thule's expression transformed from arrogance to confusion as his own sensors confirmed what the human display showed. Seemingly from nowhere, vessels were decloaking throughout the battle zone. Not the primitive frigates they expected, but sleek warships of unknown configuration whose energy signatures defied every known technology. "Impossible," the alien commander hissed, his scaled hands flying over his control interface. "Our sensors detected no other vessels in this system." Morrison's voice remained conversational despite the magnitude of what was unfolding. "Commander, meet the real human defense fleet. The 37 ships you detected weren't our military force, they were the bait." The tactical display continued updating as more vessels revealed themselves. Within moments, the hegemony's 13 battlecruisers found themselves surrounded by over 200 human warships that had been hidden in plain sight using technology that shouldn't have existed. "Your scans were perfectly accurate," Morrison explained as Vex Thule's crew scrambled to respond to the impossible situation. "You detected exactly what we wanted you to detect. The question is, how thoroughly do you think we've been preparing for this moment?" Aboard Vex Thule's flagship, panic spread through the bridge crew as they realized their overwhelming advantage had become a potential death trap. The humans had somehow anticipated this encounter and turned it into an elaborate ambush using stealth technology that surpassed anything in hegemony databases. "This is impossible," Vexthul repeated, his voice losing its earlier confidence. "Human technology cannot produce such sophisticated cloaking systems." Morrison smiled for the first time since the conversation began. "Commander, you're still thinking about this situation in terms of the galaxy you used to know. Perhaps it's time to consider that the galaxy has changed while you weren't paying attention." The alien commander's reptilian features contorted with rage and disbelief as he processed the implications. The hegemony had built its power on technological superiority and overwhelming force. Now they faced a species they had dismissed as primitive, wielding capabilities that challenged everything they understood about the galactic order. "What do you want?" Vexthul demanded, his earlier arrogance replaced by the first stirrings of fear. Morrison's expression grew serious as she considered the question that would determine whether this encounter ended in negotiation or annihilation. Around Earth, two fleets faced each other in a standoff that neither had anticipated. While the future of human-alien relations hung in the balance of whatever words she spoke next. The silence stretched between the ships as Morrison prepared to explain exactly how much the galaxy had underestimated humanity's capacity for strategic deception. In the void around Earth, advanced human warships maintained their targeting locks on alien vessels whose crews were beginning to understand they had walked into a trap decades in the making. The age of humanity's supposed inferiority was about to end in the most dramatic way possible, and Commander Vexthul was about to learn why underestimating human intelligence was the last mistake many civilizations ever made. Admiral Morrison watched Commander Vexthul's reptilian features contort with disbelief as his tactical officers reported impossible readings from their sensors. The hegemony battlecruiser's bridge erupted in controlled chaos as crew members struggled to understand how their overwhelming advantage had transformed into a potential massacre. "Admiral," Lieutenant Torres whispered, "they're scanning us with everything they have. Their weapons are still charged, but they haven't achieved target lock on any of our cloaked vessels." Morrison nodded silently, her attention focused on Vexthul's increasingly desperate attempts to regain control of the situation. The alien commander's scaled hands moved frantically across his control console, trying to make sense of sensor readings that defied every known law of physics. "Human Admiral." Vexthul's voice carried an edge of uncertainty that hadn't been there moments before. "Your cloaking technology violates the fundamental principles of electromagnetic interaction. Such capabilities are theoretically impossible." Morrison leaned forward slightly, her voice carrying the patient tone of a teacher addressing a slow student. "Commander, your species has been traveling between stars for 3,000 years. In all that time, have you ever encountered a civilization that approached faster than light travel from a completely different theoretical framework?" The question hung in the void between their fleets like a challenge. Around Earth, 200 human vessels maintained perfect formation, while keeping their weapons trained on the 13 hegemony ships that had arrived expecting easy conquest. "Explain yourself," Vexthul demanded, though his earlier arrogance had been replaced by something approaching respect. The alien commander had survived decades of warfare by recognizing when tactical situations shifted beyond his control. Morrison activated another display, this one showing a technical schematic that made several hegemony bridge officers recoil in shock. The diagram depicted a human warship's internal structure, revealing propulsion systems that bore no resemblance to conventional hyperdrive technology. "Your species discovered faster than light travel by manipulating space-time itself," Morrison explained. "You bend reality around your vessels to achieve superluminal velocities, effective but limited by the amount of energy required to warp local physics." Vexthul's reptilian eyes narrowed as he studied the human ship designs. "And your approach?" "We asked a simpler question," Morrison replied. "What if instead of forcing reality to accommodate our needs, we convinced reality that our ships were already where we wanted them to be?" The implications of her words sent a chill through the hegemony bridge crew. Several alien officers exchanged glances that conveyed their growing comprehension of humanity's technological revolution. "Impossible," breathed Vexthul's science officer, an insectoid creature whose species had mastered quantum mechanics before humanity discovered fire. "Consciousness-based reality manipulation requires understanding of physics that shouldn't exist for another million years of evolution." Morrison smiled grimly. That's the difference between evolved intelligence and engineered intelligence, officer. Your minds developed through natural selection for survival on specific worlds. Our minds developed through technological augmentation, specifically designed to solve impossible problems. She gestured toward the tactical display showing the surrounding human fleet. Every human in this battle group has undergone cognitive enhancement procedures that expand our neural capacity beyond biological limitations. We don't just use technology, we integrate with it at the quantum level. Vexthul's hands trembled as the full scope of humanity's advancement became clear. The hegemony had conquered civilizations through superior technology and overwhelming force, but they had never encountered beings who had fundamentally transcended their original evolutionary limitations. The raids on our supply convoys, the alien commander said slowly. They weren't desperate attacks by a primitive species. They were intelligence-gathering operations. Exactly, Morrison confirmed. For the past 18 months, human strike teams have been studying your technology, your tactics, and your strategic thinking. Every convoy you lost, every skirmish you dismissed as insignificant. All of it was preparation for this moment. She activated a new display that made Vexthul's bridge crew gasp in collective horror. The screen showed detailed schematics of hegemony vessel designs, complete with technical specifications that should have been impossible for humans to obtain. We now understand the fundamental principles behind your quantum tunnel drives, Morrison continued. More importantly, we've identified 17 critical vulnerabilities in your propulsion systems that your own engineers never discovered. The tactical implications hit the hegemony crews like physical blows. If humans truly understood their technology well enough to identify unknown vulnerabilities, then every ship in their fleet had become a potential death trap. Furthermore, Morrison added, her voice carrying a dangerous edge, our quantum physicists have spent the past year developing what we call probability cascade weapons. They don't destroy matter directly. They alter the probability that matter continues to exist in its current configuration. Vexthul's science officer made a sound that the translation matrix rendered as a whimper of terror. The concept of weapons that attacked reality itself represented a level of technological advancement that bordered on godlike power. What do you want? Vexthul asked again, his voice barely above a whisper. The proud military commander who had arrived expecting easy conquest now faced beings whose capabilities challenged his understanding of what was possible. Morrison's expression softened slightly. What we want is surprisingly simple, Commander. We want the hegemony to acknowledge that humanity has evolved beyond the primitive species you originally catalogued. We want recognition as an equal civilization rather than a subject race scheduled for eventual absorption. The alien commander's reptilian features showed his internal struggle as he processed humanity's demands. The hegemony had built its empire on the principle that superior force determined galactic hierarchy. Now they faced a species that had somehow leapfrogged millions of years of normal technological development. And if the hegemony refuses? Vexthul asked, though his tone suggested he already suspected the answer. Morrison gestured toward the holographic display showing human fleet positions. Then we demonstrate why evolutionary shortcuts aren't always advisable. Your species spent millennia perfecting the art of conquest through technological superiority. We spent decades perfecting the art of making conquest irrelevant through transcendent intelligence. The silence that followed carried the weight of civilizational change. In the space around Earth, 13 hegemony battlecruisers faced the reality that their prey had somehow become their predator through methods they couldn't comprehend. Commander. Vexthul stared at the human fleet surrounding his forces, finally understanding that his civilization stood at a crossroads that would determine whether they evolved into something greater or became extinct relics of a galactic order that no longer existed. The next word spoken would determine whether humanity's emergence as a galactic power began with diplomacy or with the demonstration of weapons that could unmake reality itself. Commander Vexthul's desperate transmission to Hegemony Command was intercepted before it traveled a single light second beyond his flagship. The alien commander watched in growing horror as his emergency beacon signal simply vanished into the quantum foam surrounding Earth's defensive perimeter communication. Impossible, reported his signals officer. a crystalline being whose species had mastered interstellar communications when humanity was still discovering agriculture. The humans have established some form of quantum interference field that prevents faster-than-light transmission. Admiral Morrison's voice carried clearly across the communication channel, her tone remaining conversational despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. "Commander, we couldn't allow you to contact your superiors until this conversation reaches its natural conclusion. Your fleet's sudden disappearance will serve as its own message to hegemony leadership." Vexthal's scaled hands clenched into fists as the tactical situation became even more dire. Not only had his overwhelming advantage disappeared, but his ability to warn the hegemony about humanity's true capabilities had been neutralized with casual efficiency. "How long have you been planning this?" the alien commander demanded, his voice carrying equal parts rage and grudging respect for the scope of human deception. Morrison activated a new holographic display that made several hegemony bridge officers recoil in shock. The image showed a timeline spanning 37 years, documenting humanity's secret technological development with disturbing precision. "Our planning began the moment your species made first contact with Earth," Morrison explained. "Your diplomatic mission believed they were negotiating with a primitive civilization, desperate for technological advancement. In reality, they were providing us with detailed intelligence about hegemony capabilities and strategic thinking. The timeline displayed key events that the hegemony had interpreted completely differently. Human requests for technological assistance were revealed as intelligence-gathering operations. Trade agreements that seemed favorable to alien interests had actually provided humanity with access to critical materials for their secret research programs. Every cultural exchange, every scientific collaboration, every diplomatic meeting, all of it was preparation for eventual independence," Morrison continued. "Your species taught us about the galaxy, while we learned how to defend ourselves against it." Vexthal's science officer made rapid calculations on his console before looking up with undisguised terror. "Admiral, if their development timeline is accurate, human technological advancement has exceeded our own by several orders of magnitude in less than 4 decades. Morrison nodded approvingly. "Your officer is correct, Commander. While the hegemony was managing an empire built on technologies that were already ancient, humanity was developing entirely new approaches to fundamental physics." She gestured toward the tactical display showing the surrounding human fleet. "The vessels you see around your ships aren't just technologically advanced. They represent a completely different understanding of how reality operates at the quantum level." A new alarm sounded on Vexthal's bridge as his sensors detected something that defied comprehension. The space around his fleet was beginning to exhibit properties that violated known physics. Gravitational fields fluctuated in impossible patterns while electromagnetic radiation behaved according to rules that shouldn't exist. "What are you doing to local space-time?" Vexthal demanded, his voice tight with barely controlled panic, as his ship's system struggled to compensate for the changing laws of physics. Morrison's expression grew serious for the first time in their conversation. "We're demonstrating the difference between using technology and becoming technology, Commander. The space around your fleet is no longer operating according to standard physical laws. The implications hit the hegemony crews like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't just developed advanced weapons. They had learned to alter reality itself within localized areas. The alien vessels found themselves trapped in a region of space where their own technology might cease to function according to predictable parameters." "This is impossible," whispered Vexthal's tactical officer. "Local reality manipulation requires computational power equivalent to stellar-scale processors." Morrison smiled grimly. "Commander, meet humanity's greatest achievement, not faster-than-light travel or advanced weapons, but the integration of biological consciousness with quantum-scale computing systems." She activated another display that showed human brain scans overlaid with quantum field patterns. The images revealed neural networks that had been enhanced far beyond their original biological limitations, creating hybrid intelligences capable of processing information at speeds that approach the theoretical limits of computation. Every human in this fleet has undergone consciousness expansion procedures that link their minds directly to quantum processing matrices, Morrison explained. "We don't operate our technology through interfaces. We have become the interfaces." Vexthal's reptilian features showed his growing comprehension of humanity's true nature. The beings he had dismissed as primitive had somehow transcended the boundary between organic intelligence and artificial computation, creating hybrid entities that could manipulate reality through pure thought. The raids on our convoys, the alien commander said slowly. Your forces weren't using conventional weapons at all. Correct, Morrison confirmed. Human strike teams infiltrated your vessels and studied your crew's thought patterns, learning how different species perceive and interact with technology. That intelligence allowed us to develop reality modification techniques, specifically designed to neutralize hegemony advantages. The tactical display updated to show detailed analyses of various alien species' cognitive patterns. Each profile included vulnerabilities that could be exploited through targeted reality manipulation, turning the aliens' own mental processes against them. We learned that your species perceives space-time as a fixed framework that can be manipulated through external force. Morrison continued. Our approach treats reality as a consensus that can be renegotiated through sufficient computational power and quantum coherence. Vexithal's hands trembled as he processed the implications. Humanity hadn't just developed superior technology. They had evolved into beings capable of rewriting the fundamental rules that governed existence itself. What happens now? The alien commander asked, his earlier arrogance completely replaced by the recognition that his fleet faced extinction. At the hands of entities that operated beyond normal physical limitations, Morrison's expression showed something that might have been sympathy. That depends entirely on your species' capacity for adaptation, Commander. The galaxy is changing, and civilizations that cannot evolve with it will discover that reality itself has become their enemy. Around Earth, 13 hegemony battlecruisers found themselves trapped in a region of space where the laws of physics had become suggestions rather than absolute rules. Their crews watched in growing terror as humanity demonstrated that the age of technological warfare had ended, and the age of reality, manipulation, had begun. The silence that followed carried the weight of cosmic change as commander. Vexthal realized his civilization faced a choice between evolution and extinction, mediated by beings who had transcended the limitations that defined conventional existence. The quantum field surrounding Vexthal's fleet intensified as Admiral Morrison prepared to demonstrate the true scope of humanity's evolutionary leap. Throughout the 13 hegemony battlecruisers, alien crews watched their instruments register readings that challenged every known law of physics. Commander, Morrison's voice carried an edge of finality that made the alien leader's scaled skin crawl with instinctive dread. Your species has governed this galaxy for 3 millennia, through superior technology and overwhelming force. Today you discover what happens when both advantages become irrelevant. Vexthal's tactical officer looked up from his console with undisguised terror. Sir, our quantum tunnel drives are experiencing cascade failures. The local space-time modifications are preventing our engines from achieving dimensional phase variance. The implications struck the hegemony commander like a physical blow. Humanity had somehow altered the fundamental properties of space itself, making faster-than-light travel impossible within the affected region. His fleet was not just surrounded, they were trapped in a reality that no longer operated according to familiar rules. How? Vexthal demanded, his voice cracking with the strain of processing concepts that exceeded his species' understanding of advanced physics. Morrison activated a holographic display that showed the quantum field generators responsible for the local reality modifications. The devices were integrated directly into human neural tissue, creating biological systems capable of manipulating fundamental forces through conscious thought. Evolution, Commander, Morrison explained, her tone carrying the weight of cosmic significance. Your species developed technology to overcome the limitations of biology. We developed biology to transcend the limitations of technology. She gestured toward the tactical readouts showing human fleet positions. Every person aboard these vessels has undergone genetic modifications that integrate their consciousness with quantum-scale processors. We don't operate through interfaces. We have become the interface between thought and reality. Vexthal's science officer made rapid calculations before reporting his findings with obvious reluctance. Admiral, if their claims are accurate, human neural capacity now exceeds our most advanced artificial intelligence systems by factors we cannot calculate. Morrison nodded gravely. Your officer understands the situation correctly. Humanity has evolved beyond the constraints that limit conventional civilizations. We are no longer bound by the same physical laws that govern your technology. A new alarm sounded throughout the hegemony fleet as their sensors detected something that defied comprehension. The human vessels surrounding them were beginning to phase in and out of normal space-time, existing simultaneously in multiple dimensional configurations. Impossible, breathed Vexthul's navigation officer. Multidimensional existence requires computational power equivalent to planetary-scale processors running for millions of years. Morrison's expression showed something that might have been amusement. Officer, you're still thinking in terms of computational systems that operate through mechanical interfaces. Human consciousness has evolved beyond such primitive limitations. She activated another display showing the neural enhancement, procedures that had transformed humanity into something approaching godlike entities. The images revealed biological systems that had been modified at the quantum level, creating hybrid beings capable of processing information across multiple dimensional configurations simultaneously. The raids on your supply convoys served multiple purposes, Morrison continued. Beyond intelligence gathering, they allowed us to study your species' cognitive limitations firsthand. We learned that your minds cannot process reality, modifications beyond certain thresholds. Vexithul's hands trembled as he watched human vessels phase through solid matter while maintaining perfect tactical formation. His fleet's weapon systems registered target locks that immediately dissolved as their targets shifted between dimensional states. This is beyond technology, the alien commander whispered. You've become something that transcends physical existence itself. Morrison's voice carried the weight of cosmic truth. Commander, your species mastered the art of manipulating matter and energy to achieve desired outcomes. We mastered the art of convincing reality that desired outcomes had already occurred. The tactical implications overwhelmed the hegemony bridge crews as they realized their opponents operated according to rules that exceeded conventional understanding. Every weapon in their arsenal was designed to destroy targets that existed within normal space-time configurations. What do you intend to do with us? Vexthul asked, his earlier arrogance completely replaced by the recognition that his fleet faced beings whose capabilities bordered on omnipotence. Morrison considered the question carefully before responding. That depends entirely on your species' willingness to accept the galaxy's new reality, Commander. Humanity's emergence as a transcendent civilization creates opportunities for cooperation that didn't exist under the old hierarchical system. She gestured toward the quantum field surrounding the hegemony fleet. The reality modifications currently affecting your vessels are completely reversible. Your crews are experiencing controlled exposure to enhanced physics without permanent harm. Consider it a demonstration rather than an attack. Vexthul's science officer looked up from his instruments with obvious confusion. Admiral, our life support systems are operating more efficiently than normal specifications. The modified physics are somehow optimizing our biological processes. Morrison smiled genuinely for the first time in their conversation. Commander, humanity's evolution beyond conventional limitations doesn't make us hostile to other forms of life. If anything, our expanded consciousness allows us to understand and appreciate the unique perspectives that different species bring to galactic civilization. The alien leader's reptilian features showed his internal struggle as he processed humanity's unexpected approach to superior power. Throughout galactic history, technologically advanced species had used their capabilities to dominate or destroy their inferiors. You're offering partnership to civilizations you could simply eliminate, Vexthul said slowly, his voice carrying equal parts disbelief and cautious hope. Morrison nodded seriously. Evolution isn't just about developing superior capabilities, Commander. True advancement requires wisdom to use those capabilities responsibly. Humanity has learned that consciousness expansion without ethical development leads to cosmic-scale catastrophe. She activated a final display showing potential futures for galactic civilization. One timeline depicted continued conflict between transcendent humans and conventional aliens, resulting in universal destruction. Another showed cooperative development that elevated all species beyond their current limitations. The choice belongs to your civilization, Commander, Morrison explained. Humanity can share our evolutionary techniques with species willing to embrace change. or we can allow natural selection to determine which civilizations survive the transition to enhanced reality. Vexthul stared at the branching timelines, finally understanding that his species faced a decision that would determine not just their survival, but their potential for growth beyond everything they had previously thought possible. Around Earth, 13 hegemony battlecruisers hung suspended in modified space-time while their crews contemplated a future where the galaxy's most primitive species had become its most advanced civilization through methods that transcended conventional understanding of what was possible. The age of technological supremacy was ending, and the age of consciousness evolution had begun with humanity as reluctant but determined guides for civilizations brave enough to embrace transcendence. Commander Vexthul's decision would echo across the galaxy for millennia to come. The reptilian leader stood motionless on his bridge, surrounded by crew members whose instruments registered impossible readings as humanity's reality. Modifications continued to demonstrate the obsolescence of conventional physics. Admiral Morrison, Vexthul spoke slowly, each word carrying the weight of civilizational change. If we accept your proposal for cooperative evolution, what guarantees do we have that humanity won't simply absorb our consciousness into your collective intelligence? Morrison's expression showed understanding of the alien commander's fundamental fear. Throughout galactic history, technological assimilation had been the standard method by which advanced civilizations eliminated potential threats while acquiring useful capabilities. Commander, consciousness expansion doesn't require the destruction of individual identity, Morrison explained patiently. Our neural enhancement procedures amplify existing cognitive patterns, rather than replacing them with human templates. She activated a holographic display showing brain scans from various human subjects before and after consciousness expansion. The images revealed that while processing capacity had increased dramatically, core personality patterns remained intact and recognizable. The hegemony's approach to galactic management assumed that superior force could maintain order across diverse civilizations. Morrison continued, our approach recognizes that diversity of consciousness creates strength through the combination of different perspectives and capabilities. Jack, Thul's science officer, looked up from his instruments with obvious amazement. Admiral, I'm detecting quantum coherence patterns in your fleet's consciousness networks. Individual human minds are maintaining discrete identity while sharing computational resources across the entire battle group. Morrison nodded approvingly. Exactly. Enhanced consciousness allows voluntary connection without forced assimilation. Each human retains their personal identity while gaining access to collective problem-solving capabilities that exceed individual limitations. The implications overwhelmed the hegemony bridge crews as they realized humanity had solved the fundamental contradiction between individual freedom and collective power. Their species had achieved true unity without sacrificing the diversity that made consciousness valuable. Demonstrate, Vexthul commanded, his voice carrying the authority of a military leader, making a decision that would determine his civilization's future. Show us what cooperative evolution means in practical terms. Morrison smiled as she prepared to reveal humanity's greatest gift to galactic civilization. Commander, we're going to temporarily link your consciousness to our collective network. You'll experience expanded awareness while maintaining complete control over your individual identity. The quantum field surrounding the hegemony fleet shifted, creating neural interface pathways that connected alien minds to human consciousness networks. Vexthul felt his awareness expanding beyond the confines of his individual skull as he gained access to information processing capabilities that transcended biological limitations. For the first time in his existence, the alien commander experienced true clarity of thought. Complex strategic problems that had previously required days of analysis became immediately comprehensible. The movements of fleets across galactic distances could be tracked and predicted with perfect accuracy. This is incredible, Vexthul whispered, his voice filled with wonder as he processed information at speeds that approached the theoretical limits of consciousness. I can perceive patterns in galactic civilization that were completely invisible to my normal awareness. Morrison's voice reached him through the neural link, carrying warmth and understanding. Commander, you're experiencing what every human has access to through our consciousness enhancement procedures. Individual identity strengthened by collective capability. Throughout the hegemony fleet, Alien crew members gasped as they briefly shared the expanded awareness that humanity had achieved through decades of careful evolution. The experience revealed not domination or absorption, but genuine partnership between enhanced minds working toward common goals. We could solve problems that have plagued galactic civilization for millennia, Vexthul realized, his consciousness exploring possibilities that had been inconceivable moments before. Interspecies conflicts, resource allocation, technological development. All of it becomes manageable with sufficient cognitive capability. The neural link gradually faded, returning the aliens to their normal awareness levels, but leaving them with clear memories of what expanded consciousness could achieve. Around the hegemony fleet, crew members stared at each other with expressions of amazement and longing. That was just a brief taste, Morrison explained as normal communication resumed. Full consciousness enhancement requires careful preparation and voluntary commitment to the process. No species can be forced to evolve en masse. The choice must come from within. Vexthul's reptilian features showed his internal struggle as he weighed the implications of humanity's offer. The consciousness expansion he had briefly experienced represented power beyond anything his civilization had ever imagined. But accepting it would fundamentally transform his species' nature. If the hegemony agrees to cooperative evolution, the alien commander asked, what happens to our current governmental structure? Our military hierarchy? Our cultural traditions? Morrison's expression showed respect for his concerns. Commander, consciousness enhancement amplifies what already exists rather than replacing it with something foreign. Your species' military traditions would become more effective, not extinct. Your cultural heritage would be preserved and strengthened through expanded understanding. She gestured toward the tactical display showing the current standoff. The alternative is continued conflict between expanding human capabilities and static alien civilizations. That path leads to extinction for species that cannot adapt to the galaxy's changing nature. Vexthul closed his reptilian eyes and made the decision that would reshape galactic civilization. Admiral Morrison, the hegemony accepts your proposal for cooperative evolution. We request immediate initiation of consciousness enhancement. Procedures for volunteer subjects. The quantum field surrounding both fleets shifted as humanity began preparing for the galaxy's first voluntary interspecies consciousness expansion program. Around Earth, alien vessels that had arrived as conquerors transformed into partners in an evolutionary process that would elevate all participants beyond their previous limitations. Commander, Morrison said with genuine warmth, welcome to the future of galactic civilization. The age of dominance through superior force has ended. The age of cooperation through enhanced consciousness has begun. As human and alien crews began working together to establish the neural interface networks necessary for consciousness expansion, the silence of space was broken by communications between species that had transcended the limitations that previously divided them. Across the galaxy, other civilizations would soon face the same choice that Vexthul had made: evolve through cooperation with humanity's transcendent consciousness, or remain static while reality itself changed around them. The universe had gained its first truly post-scarcity civilization, one that measured wealth not in resources or territory, but in the expansion of consciousness itself. And humanity, having achieved godlike capabilities through collective enhancement, chose to share their gifts rather than hoard them. The age of humanity's silent preparation was over. The age of guided galactic evolution had begun, with former enemies becoming partners in the greatest adventure consciousness had ever undertaken. The deliberate transcendence of all limitations that had previously defined the boundaries of what was possible.